You know what finally made me rethink everything I thought I knew about composting? It was about 15 years ago, and I was struggling with this big, plastic tumbling composter in my backyard. I'd spent nearly $200 on it. I was out there every single day cranking that handle until my shoulder ached, and all I had to show for it was a slimy, foul-smelling mess that looked more like a swamp than soil. I followed the books, I bought these starter packets, and I was still failing. Then one afternoon, I was over at an Amish neighbor's place in Lancaster County, a man named Levi who's been farming the same few acres since he was a boy, and I saw his pile. It wasn't a pile at all, really. It was just a quiet, clean corner of the garden where the earth seemed to be swallowing up the kitchen scraps as fast as he could put them down. There was no smell, no flies, and when he took a pitchfork and turned over the edge for me, the soil underneath was the darkest, richest material I'd ever seen in my life. I stood there looking at my clean, expensive plastic bin and then at his simple, dirt-covered mound, and I realized I'd been working way too hard for way too little. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how they do it and how you can start using it in your own backyard, even if you only have a small space. And stick around to the end because I'll share a specific liquid technique involving common weeds that can supercharge your heavy feeders during the summer heat. Now, for 27 years, I've been trying to get my garden to produce the way the farms around me do. For the first decade, I did it the modern way. I bought bags of 10-10-10 fertilizer. I tilled every spring until the dirt looked like powder, and I treated my compost like a science project. It worked fine, I suppose. I grew some tomatoes and some beans, but the plants always seemed stressed, and the soil felt dead between my fingers once the August sun hit it. When I started talking to my Mennonite and Amish friends, I realized they don't look at a compost pile as a waste disposal unit. To them, it's the heart of the farm. They call it stewardship, but it's really about a closed-loop system. Everything that comes from the earth must go back to it. There's a beautiful principle they live by called Gelassenheit, which is often translated as submission or letting be, and you see it in their gardening. They don't fight nature. They just set the stage and let God's biology do the heavy lifting. And here's where the science backs them up. Modern soil microbiology tells us that when we overmanage compost or use synthetic fertilizers, we actually kill off the mycorrhizal fungi that plants need to thrive. The Amish have known this instinctively for centuries. They aren't trying to force the soil, they're feeding the life within it. The first thing Amish gardeners understand is that the best compost starts in the kitchen, but not the way you think. Most of us are told to keep a little bin on the counter, but in an Amish household, nothing is wasted. Eggshells aren't just tossed in. They're dried on the back of the wood stove or in a warm window and then crushed into a fine powder. This makes the calcium available to the soil almost immediately instead of taking years to break down. If you're in zones 6 or 7, where blossom end rot can be a real headache for your tomatoes, this one little habit is a game changer. I started doing this about 8 years ago, and the difference in my calcium levels was visible in just one season. I'll be honest with you, it takes an extra minute to crush them up, but it saves you a fortune in soil amendments later. This next piece is one that I completely overlooked for most of my gardening life. It's about the brown material. We're always told to use dried leaves or straw, which is great, but my Mennonite friends often use something else. Old, weathered corn stalks, or even the bedding from the chicken coop that's been sitting for a few months. They don't just layer it. They create a base of coarse, woody material about 6 inches thick before they ever put a kitchen scrap down. This allows oxygen to flow up through the bottom of the pile. If you've ever had a compost pile that turned into a stinky, wet mess, it's likely because you didn't have that breathing floor. I started building my piles this way on top of bare earth, never on pallets or plastic, and the speed of decomposition doubled. Now here's where the Amish approach really comes together, and it's something called pit cycling. In many Lancaster County gardens, they don't have one giant mountain of compost. Instead, they dig a shallow trench, maybe 12 inches deep, right in the middle of the garden path or in an empty row. They fill that trench with kitchen scraps, cover it back over with the soil they dug out, and just leave it. By the time they rotate their crops to that row next year, the soil is incredibly fertile. For those of you in the colder climates of zones 3 through 5, this is a perfect way to keep composting through the winter when a traditional pile might freeze solid. The earth acts as an insulator and the worms stay active much longer beneath the frost line. I want to be upfront here because I think honesty matters more than hype. This method isn't a miracle that happens overnight. Realistic first-year expectations are that you'll see a change in your soil texture, but the real black gold takes about 18 months to truly mature into into that crumbly, sweet-smelling humus. Improve your technique each year by adding more variety to your scraps, and those results climb, but I'd rather you start with honest expectations and be pleasantly surprised by the third year. If this approach to gardening resonates with you and you want more of these traditional methods that actually work, take a second to hit that subscribe button. I've been exploring these methods for decades, and there's a lot more I want to share with you. Now, let me be straight with you about the turning of the pile. Modern gardening magazines tell you to turn your compost every week. I watched an Amish neighbor do this, and he almost never turned it. Instead, he'd take a long iron rod or even a sturdy stick and poke deep holes into the mound every few feet. He called it venting. It lets the heat out so you don't burn off the nitrogen, but it keeps the internal structure of the fungi intact. When we turn a pile aggressively, we tear apart the fungal networks that are trying to build. By just venting it, you're helping the biology instead of disrupting it. If you're in the hotter, more humid zones 8 or 9, this is vital. Turning a pile too much in high heat can actually cause it to gas off all that precious nitrogen you're trying to save. The last part of the system is the moisture. I used to go out with a hose and soak my compost bin. I realized later that was a huge mistake. A Mennonite friend showed me that the pile should feel like a wrung-out sponge, not dripping, just damp. One, he would cover his pile with an old piece of burlap or even a thick layer of spent hay. This keeps the sun from baking the life out of the top layer and keeps the moisture in so you don't have to keep adding water. It's a simple thing, but it's one piece of a system, and the system is what makes the difference. The Amish don't do anything in isolation. The hay they use to cover the pile eventually becomes the pile, and the moisture they save keeps the worms from fleeing into the deep subsoil. I see a few patterns people fall into when they try to move away from conventional composting. I did these myself for years, so no judgment here. One is the perpetual pile, where you just keep throwing fresh stuff on top of the old stuff forever. The Amish never do this. They have a start date and a stop date for a pile. Once it's full, they leave it alone and start a new one. If you keep adding fresh scraps, the whole pile stays in a state of early decomposition and never becomes finished soil. Another pattern is being too clean. We want to chop everything into tiny bits with a food processor, but the Amish know that variety in size creates air pockets. Don't overprocess. Let nature's teeth, the beetles and the worms, do that work for you. Finally, the biggest mistake is treating the compost like a separate entity from the garden. Remember, this isn't a standalone trick. It's the engine. If you aren't putting that finished material back onto the beds in the fall, you're missing the whole point of the cycle. Now, here's something I picked up from an Amish family that I haven't seen mentioned in any gardening guide, and it's the bonus I promised you. Or when your garden is in the middle of a heavy production phase, like July or August, and your compost isn't quite ready yet, they use what they call comfrey tea, but with a twist. They'll take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it half full with comfrey leaves or even stinging nettles, and then fill it with water. But instead of just letting it sit, they add one single shovelful of that half-finished active compost from their pile into the bucket. That shovelful acts like a sourdough starter. It inoculates the water with the exact microbes already adapted to your local climate. After 3 days, you strain that out and water your heavy feeders like pumpkins or tomatoes. I started doing this 5 years ago, and it's like giving your plants a direct shot of energy without the burn of synthetic liquids. It's simple, it's free, and it uses the biology you've already started building in your pile. That's what I've learned from Amish and Mennonite gardeners about building soil from the ground up. It's not about buying the right bin or the right chemicals. It's about patience, observation, and respect for the cycle of the land. If any of this changed how you think about your trash, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Are you using a bin, or are you ready to try a simple mound? Hit subscribe if you want more of these deep dives into how traditional communities grow food with methods that have worked for generations. Thanks for spending time with me today. I'll see you in the next one.